Online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of hell. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UENradio.com.
Hey, everybody, it is Wednesday, January 28th. I'm Emerson Collins.
And I'm Del Shores.
And you're listening to
the Del and Emerson Show. Straight talk.
Real guy!
Yay! Thank you, studio audience, for that lovely applause.
Excited to be here.
How are you, Emerson Collins?
Well,
I say as I'm laughing.
It has been a day. So it is Wednesday, and on Monday, it turns out that I need to have my appendix removed.
And he's here. He is sitting here. I can't believe it. I was like, you should have seen the frantic nature that overtook me. There was concern at first, and then I went into that, okay, how long do I have to ask before, can you do the show on Wednesday?
Right. So the short version of the story is Sunday night, I was feeling some pain at 4 o'clock Monday morning. It was dramatic. I felt like that alien in the Alien movie was trying to crawl out of my sternum, and so I went to urgent care, where they eventually told me that, yes, it was appendicitis and my appendix needed to come out, but they couldn't do it. So I crossed town to go to an ER at 3 in the afternoon where they were lovely. And about 8:30 at night, I think, I was in for like 45 minutes, and they took my appendix out. And then I met a lovely little nurse at about 11 o'clock when I checked into a shishi room, who I told, I need to get out of here as fast as possible. What's on your checklist? Let's go through all of that stuff so I can get home and recover there. And at 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, I didn't waltz.
Pranced. You pranced a little. Well, no, with pain.
You could call it sashaying.
Prancing
if
with pain.
I were, an octogenarian maybe. Out the door, got my pain meds, and went home. And so here we are.
And not only went home, but went home, and I had sent him, because, Emerson organizes our show. He really does. I mean, he is truly a producer of this show. And I throw him things when someone, and I, by the way, just so appreciative of the fans who I said, hey, Emerson's in the hospital, and Holly Joe, who sent me so many stories, and I was cutting and pasting, and the font was big and small, and this, and I don't even know how you read it, and he went home, and he did our lovely outline. I thought I was just going to have to kind of wing it, John. I thought I was going to have to call, Blake or Justin or one of the View, but so thank you for...
No, I am that committed to
Were you drugged?
Important endeavor. I mean, yes, I was definitely drugged at several times through the process, and I am a little bit right now, so that should make it fun.
Yeah, and you're going to Norfolk, Virginia this week as well.
I am, but for the surgery, the Cliff Notes, for those of you who care, I am fine. It went well. There are no after effects so far, so I am taking it easy. I'm not allowed to carry anything or drive anywhere, so I'm doing my best driving Miss Daisy around town. If you want to read the really long version, I wrote what I'm calling Lawrence of Appendixa on my Facebook page, facebook.com/Emerson Collins Official. You can read my hopefully amusing recounting of the entire adventure there. But we have a big show to do. So
and in lieu of flowers, you want cash, correct?
Yes, that's exactly right. In lieu of donations, donations directly to me. But yes, and all of that is because on Monday I am traveling to Norfolk, Virginia for the Reel It Out Film Festival, the Hampton Roads Queer Film Festival, to do a screening of Southern Baptist Sissies on Tuesday night. So if you or anyone you know is in the Virginia area, you can check them out at reelitout.org, and I will be there on Tuesday night.
Lovely people. They've been so great to us. So yes, please.
And I'm super excited. And you are going off on an adventure.
I know. I'm gonna have to miss the Norfolk thing. I have to go on a Caribbean cruise. It's
tough.
It's so hard. Work. I'm going to Haiti, Puerto Rico, St. Martin's, St. Bart's, and Fort Lauderdale.
Oh, I just don't know how you're going to get through it all.
It's going to be hard. All gays, just a big sold-out cruise.
Which cruise is this?
This is Atlantis.
So
Rich
now,
Campbell, thank you. Brandon, thank you.
Now, we all know that on a gay cruise, you pack, like 3 swimsuits and costumes. So do you have all your costumes in order?
You know what? I select, because I perform 3 shows, so I try to select on the days that I'm not performing because it is fun. I like doing it. And you saw, there's a sort of a nautical kind of at sea night where I actually am just wearing a net and some and seafoam underwear with shells.
Ariel, the gay mermaid.
So that's what, and it's also great because you can just be a little bit risque and trashy. And I like it because I don't have a perfect body by any means, but it's real dark at these parties.
Right.
So I look, I stay, distance and darkness.
Shadows.
Yeah, just in the shadows.
Right.
And it's like,
a little hint of something alluring in the distance.
For 83 years old, Del Shores is looking good.
Well, those cruisers take that stuff seriously. The first time we went on one, I showed up and this guy had a fanny pack with like 12 Speedos in it, and he was like, "That's all of my lug." And then he had a steamer trunk, and all that was costumes.
They do. There's lots of crazy costumes, and I love it. I think it's fun, and everybody has such a good time, and we stay so inebriated.
Well, that's exciting. So we'll get to hear the catch up on that when he gets back.
And I won't be here next week, so you will have.
Well, we're still working on what the plan is for next week, so that is to be determined.
Well, it's always exciting when I'm gone, so I love the shows when I'm gone. And we have a big equality update. We thought that the equality updates were sort of over.
Until the Supreme Court, but no.
No.
Dun, dun, dun. Breaking news in what I am calling the sweet homo Alabama problem.
Yes.
Bless their hearts, Alabama just cannot, come forward into the modern era at all.
I just love, when I used to do stand-up, I always said that Alabama and Mississippi would be the final two states. I was wrong.
Yeah.
Alabama.
Well, they are trying real hard to still be one of the last ones. You should know that on Friday, a U.S. District Judge ruled that the state ban on same-sex marriage in Alabama is constitutional. Now, that should have been the end of the story.
Unconstitutional.
Yeah.
I thought you said constitutional.
Well, unconstitutional.
Okay.
And that should be the end of it until the Supreme Court rules in June. But no, not in Alabama. Over the weekend, the Alabama Probate Judges Association said that their members should not issue licenses. Now, that's the organization of the 67 county judges. They said that it only applied to the two plaintiffs in the case and that they advised their judge members not to issue licenses. Now, then Montgomery and somewhere else said that they were going to issue them, and they said, well, I guess each county judge can do what he wants to. And then on Monday, the same circuit judge ruled in favor of a second couple, but she did then issue stays in both cases.
2 weeks, right?
Until February the 9th on both of those cases. Now, I will say, and we didn't talk about this in advance, I finally got to see Selma on Sunday, and it was a very interesting experience because all of this was with the Judges Association was happening on Sunday morning, and then Sunday afternoon I went to see Selma.
Crazy.
And early in the movie, Oprah goes to take the quiz to enable to register to vote, and that racist county clerk asks her, how many probate judges are there in the state of Alabama? And I thought to myself, 67. I just read this story about this Judges Association, and she said 67. And then, of course, he says name them, and she can't, and was denied the right to vote. But it was fascinating how resonant, and I'm not trying to, of course, to co-opt racial equality and LGBT equality. They're different and different issues. But it was just interesting to be seeing a film about how much Alabama resisted equal rights for African Americans on the same day reading stories about the actual judges in Alabama trying to do the same thing with the LGBT people.
Yeah, you're right. It is different, but there are similarities, and Alabama is kicking and screaming the same way that they justified racism. Mm-hmm. It's just ridiculous that always. I know our Alabama listeners. I know that there are good ones. I don't want to clump you all in one pile.
But when 90% of the people that live in a state voted to support the ban, that's one of the largest percentages of any state.
Only Mississippi was more. Only Mississippi.
What I say to the liberals and LGBT people and allies in Alabama is good for you. Good for you for living there, for staying there, because that's one of those places that a lot of people got out of.
Well, I love them because when I play there, I sell out. I love Alabama. I've played Birmingham many times. And speaking of allies, I love this next piece of this puzzle with they actually have elected somebody into office, and tell us what she did.
Well, Patricia Todd is the only lesbian lawmaker in Alabama, and over the weekend, in response to this and the ridiculous statements made by so many Alabama lawmakers about same-sex marriage, she threatened to begin outing the affairs of her anti-gay colleagues. She said everybody knows this stuff, and on her Facebook page, she said she will not stand by and allow legislators to talk about family values when they have affairs, and I know many who are and have. I will call our elected officials who want to hide in the closet out.
That's what I say.
She's also the same one that a couple of weeks ago she wanted to name their equal rights ordination the Tim Cook equal rights ordinance to draw attention to the plight of LGBT people there. So she's like a one-person army fighting the good fight.
I
in
want her.
Alabama.
Somebody told me they knew her and that she would actually call in on our show. I want to talk to her. She is now my hero. I love her, as well as the 4 people who filed the lawsuit and this happened, and this judge, Callie V.S. Jenny Grenade. We have to. These are our heroes today. So thank you, all of you, and yes, Patricia Todd, I want to talk to you.
Yes.
Because and what is the moral of this lesson? Don't fuck with a lesbian. Do not fuck with them.
Well, I think the moral of the story is don't be a hypocrite.
Exactly.
But so related to this, we've talked about as we continue to march forward specifically in same-sex marriage equality and in moving into other issues, that the response from the other side was going to be these religious freedom bills and all of these crazy things that are the last-ditch efforts of bigoted people to protect their rights to be bigots, and that is continuing to happen. In this next section, we have a whole bunch of stories specifically about that, and we've invented a brand new section of the show inspired by a phrase that Dell's used in so much of his writing that we're calling
weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Well,
it's a biblical reference, and it's the people who are opposing us who are going down weeping and gnashing of their teeth. So every week now we will be featuring those assholes.
So we're going to find out who's gnashing their teeth, and we're going to kick it off still in Alabama, because continuing the saga there with the Alabama Chief Justice Roy Moore. Now, that name may sound familiar to some of you. He was the guy who was once the Supreme Court Chief Justice and fought for their right to have the 10 Commandments on the courthouse and then was kicked off.
We have a picture of
and
it.
removed from it. Well, on Tuesday, he lashed out at the federal courts that have, as he said, imposed by judicial fiat same-sex marriage in 21 states of the Union, arguing that he will continue to follow his state's amendment barring such marriages in spite of a federal trial court ruling the contrary. He wrote to the governor of Alabama expressing his, quote, legitimate concerns about whether federal courts have the authority to consider the constitutionality of Alabama's marriage laws. He asked the governor not to enforce the ruling, citing the Bible and an 1825 letter from Thomas Jefferson. So, I don't know. I feel like the slogan is the South will rise again.
Well, here's the deal. I mean, you've got here we start with Alabama. Now we can mix in Mississippi and Louisiana, because Brian Fisher, their headquartered, the American Family Association in Mississippi, he supported Louisiana Governor Bobby Gentle's recent prayer rally, and he made this horrible comment, another weeping and gnashing of teeth. They're vicious. This is about homosexuals. They're vicious. They are mean. You literally are staring into virtually the unvarnished energy of Satan himself when you come up against the forces that are pushing the homosexual agenda forward. And then he goes, furthermore, I do not know what goes on inside Barack Obama's heart, but I do know that he is not sincerely a devoted follower of Christ.
Well,
so there we've covered 2 more states, and now we have.
Well, so yes, and continuing. So that was the story of Sweet Homo, Alabama. But of course, now we have to check in with the poor Oklahomos, where Sally Kern is continued to gnash her teeth in spite of all of these cases that she continues to lose. This really is kind of crazy, because she managed to roll in everything that we've talked about as a terrifying possibility of religious bigots to continue to enshrine their bigotry in legislation. She is introducing 3 bills in Oklahoma. The first is the Preservation and Sovereignty of Marriage Act. It attempts to nullify federal court action that legalized same-sex marriage after Oklahoma voters approved a constitutional ban. So we just want to ignore the courts. Then there's House Bill 1597 that would allow businesses to refuse service to any lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender person, group, or association and be immune from civil liability. So, religious freedom bill. House Bill 1598, which would allow parents to seek counseling to change a gay minor's sexual orientation without interference from the state. Critics say conversion therapy doesn't work and has several negative side effects, as we've talked about. So she literally did the trifecta.
She's been busy.
Let's ignore the courts. Let's protect, quote, religious freedom, and let's protect the right to attempt to convert LGBT youth. So she's just rolling all of them out there.
She is such a hater, and we need to get a sound effect for the weeping and the gnashing of the teeth. We need to figure out what that is.
Well, we talked about that before. What does gnashing teeth sound like?
I don't know.
Well, so we have pulled Sally Kern's quotes into a monologue that Del Shores and his dramatic ability will demonstrate the ludicrousness of the rationale that she is using to support these 3 blatantly bigoted pieces of legislation.
Now, keep in mind, I am not Sally Kern, but I did go on YouTube YouTube, and I did try to to hear how she spoke, and this is a little bit like this. Okay, let me channel Miss Sally Kern. We are a separate, independent state. We are not controlled by the courts. And so the voters of this state have the right to establish law in their state. This is a segment of our society that for whatever reason, usually it is more through nurturing than through nature that they have chosen a particular lifestyle. Who is coming to your businesses and saying, you do need to do this or we are going to sue you and you out of your livelihood? Who is this? It is the LGBT. People live their lives based on some value system, and they should be able to refuse service to someone who disagrees with their value system. The LGBT community wants total acceptance of a lifestyle, and to do that, those people that have religious conscience, that have values based upon the Bible, the Ten Commandments, what are they going to do? Throw theirs out? And this is oil and water, people. There should be freedom to exercise your religious conscience.
Amen.
The homosexual community has no problem with someone going from straight to gay, but they have a big problem when somebody goes from gay to straight. They oppose it. This hits at their heart of their mantra that you are born gay and can't change. Name calling is what you do when you don't want to deal with the issues and the facts. It is intimidation. I know who I am. I know what I believe. People who know me know that I am not a bigot. I am not a hater.
Amen. I mean, it's literally like she
I think
sat
I'm going to
down.
put that on my reel.
If you were going to write a bigoted monologue for a character in one of your projects, you couldn't write it better than this.
No, you couldn't. You could
She literally said every stereotypical thing that there is to say about these three horrible kinds of legislation.
What's crazy is there were all these rumors, and it even hit the press that her son is gay, and they came out swinging both she and her son, and he basically said, no, he is just godly and celibate.
Just like Marcus Bachman,
and then she
right?
said he doesn't like football. He's more musical and artistic, but he is not gay. So
just
anyway.
artistic. Well, and not to be, and as if that weren't enough, it really is amazing that she got all three kinds of the terrible bills that we've talked about. Well, State Rep Todd Russ, also in Oklahoma, has introduced a bill that would require all marriages to have the stamp of approval of a minister, priest, rabbi, or other religious official. He sees it as a way to keep judges and clerks who are opposed to marriage equality from having to issue marriage licenses or officiate at same-sex weddings. Judges would no longer have the power to officiate at marriages, and clerks' courts would not issue marriage licenses. If there was no spiritual basis for the marriage, they can file an affidavit of a common law marriage. That's it. He literally doesn't care what kind of religion it is. It's not even a Christian at this point. You just have to have some kind of religious figure.
But here's the deal. I mean, you know, we have gay pastors now. We have gay affirming churches. One of them showed Southern Baptist sissies in Oklahoma City. So this is a stupid bill. And put that picture of him up. He is a big old queen. He is a big old queen with pursed lips.
I feel like he's one of those people that would say there are no gay pastors, like that, because he literally like doesn't understand the internet. You know?
And I'm
like,
telling you got the picture up? Yeah. There has been a cock in that mouth, I guarantee you. All right.
Well, gnashing on, as it were. Ted Cruz, of course, can't be left out of this conversation. Bless his heart, after his do-over at the State of the Union, he's got to, get his druthers back up. And in response to President Obama's State of the Union speech about the marriage equality being a freedom issue, Ted Cruz told the Washington Blade, well, he is certainly entitled to his views, and I think the proper place to debate those issues is in the legislative chambers. I am a constitutionalist. From the beginning of this country, marriage has been a question of the states, and we should not have the federal government or unelected judges setting aside the policy judgment of the elected legislatures and imposing their own instead. If a state chooses to adopt gay marriage, that's within its constitutional authority to do so. But if it chooses not to, if it chooses traditional marriage, that is also within the constitutional purview. Part of the genius of the framers of our Constitution was allowing for the now 50 states to be laboratories of democracy, to adopt and reflect different policy of choices state by state. He also confirmed that, of course, he is still planning to introduce a federal constitutional amendment that would ban same-sex marriage nationwide.
What the fuck? I mean, it's almost as if this posturing is just going to continue especially until the election. When are they going to stop?
Oh, he's never going to stop.
Do you think he's going to run?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. He can't afford to not get the screen time of those primaries. Honey, he's attention.
Well, I hope
more than
somebody
anything else.
zaps those veins on his nose. I mean, they're just they need to either Photoshop them or there's got to be laser for him. That's more important than all this shit.
On a basic, like, actual substantive thing, I have my problem with people who want to talk about, like, leave it to the states, leave it to the states. Yes, that is the way the Constitution was designed. Anything not included in the Constitution was meant to be left to the individual states. You know why? Because in 1776, it took like a week to get from one state to another. You couldn't send an email and find out what they thought. Like, it was like, we don't want someone that's a week's horse ride away to be making decisions about life here that's completely different than there. I'm sorry. Like, when you're talking about education and issues of basic welfare and well-being, that, like, these are national issues now. And that the state leaving it up to the states is just a great way to say, well, if we can't convince California and New York to do it, at least in Texas we can be as backwoods and bigoted as we want to.
And I don't remember this rhetoric at all until this gay issue came to the forefront.
I mean, it is. There are lots of people. There are lots of conservatives and particularly Republicans, even ones that aren't crazy on social issues, who do feel if it's not specifically like federal defense and foreign policy, those issues should be left to the states. They believe in small government, and that's, a fundamental policy difference. But when people use it in order to say, well, we know we're conservative enough here that we can enshrine bigotry in our legislation that we can't do at the federal level, you're just calling a bullshit excuse.
Yeah, and finally, in our weeping and gnashing of teeth, this is disappointing. But Virginia squashed the ban on ex-gay therapy. Did not make it out of the state Education and Health Committee to full Senate, and the House of Delegates took no vote. So that was in Virginia. But
in Virginia, it's happened in several places. Well, but I mean, it passed in New Jersey and California.
But Virginia's still the South. There is a Southern mentality there. You're going there.
Well, yes, but that's why we keep talking about this here. Like, this ex-gay therapy thing really is a big deal, and as it comes up in states where they lose, we have to keep paying attention and make sure that they get the support they need to pass it again in the future.
What hurts, and here we can go off and make fun and whatever, but and say read Brian Fisher's quote. But what if those kids are hearing that and their parents are putting them into this therapy? It is awful, it is horrible, it is harmful, and it's detrimental to a person's soul, and so many suicides continue to happen. I did say I wanted to give a shout out to Lizzie the Leslie. I love her Facebook page, and she's got a petition going trying to inform to make it a federal what would that word be? A federal law. Yes, that's
to have like
Obama, please get involved here with this conversion therapy. And I know you don't like those petitions. We talked about that. But.
Well, I mean, I think this is an issue that we're going to have to continue to deal with at the state level for quite some time before they would address it. And with the Republican-controlled Senate and Congress, it's certainly not going to get anywhere there. So I think we're better in dealing with it in Democratic-leaning states first, again, to build momentum, and then they can eventually probably have the same thing where it's a case that we'll have to go to the Supreme
I don't
Court.
disagree with you, and I think these petitions are important, even though sometimes they're not realistic. I think they're important just because they bring attention to it.
I think raising awareness is great, but I think remembering that signing your name electronically to a change.org position isn't actually really doing anything. And so if you want to do something like taking action, like just simply calling your congressperson and leaving that information there so they know how you feel is actually far more.
15 times a day.
There are people that do that. I mean, it really is impactful when your congressional leaders are hearing, like, I care about this. This is important to me. When you fill up their voicemails.
It does make a difference. And this is a completely off-topic thing, but, when I was having some credit issues a few years ago, American Express kept calling me. And so I got their number, this bill collector, and I started calling her on a daily basis and leaving her these messages. And they finally sent me a cease and desist. So it does get their attention when you call. Okay, moving on.
Gnashing their teeth.
More. Isn't this horrible? I mean, it's we have this funny title for this, but there's so many this week.
Well, it's sort of that thing of like dealing with humor. We've talked about all of these issues are really important, and we really do have to pay attention to the kind of legislation that's being introduced to counter the LGBT community's success in certain areas. And so we give it a funny name because laughing through the pain is an important part of healing, I think, for a lot of people, and we're going to continue to laugh at these people because it takes their power away.
Yeah, and so this one, I absolutely love this story. Ben Carson, the headline is Ben Carson uses poison poison cake example to say it's okay to discriminate against gays. He was speaking at an Iowa Freedom Summit. He's a former neurosurgeon and potential 2016 presidential candidate. We're just getting a lot of good possibilities.
Well, at this point, everybody is a possibility. Sarah Palin said recently she might do it again. Lord help us all.
But he used a bizarre example of saying that basically what I have a problem with when people try to force people to act against their beliefs because they say they are discriminating against me. So they can go right down the street and buy a cake. But no, let's bring a suit against this person because I want them to make my cake even though they don't believe in it, which is really not all that smart because they might put poison in that cake. Now, here's the deal. This could go a different way as well. I've said this many times. Okay, Ben Carson, you better be careful the next time you ride on first class because that gay airline attendant, he has the ability to spit in your drink. He has the ability to put Visine, which will give you instant diarrhea. Yes, I mean, Epicat can go into a real sweet flavored milkshake.
You would not know.
So it goes both ways. Now, I want to disclaimer, I am not saying do this. I am not. But to say that, I mean, there are, a hairdresser better be careful of that peroxide.
It's also like, and you're making like, you're like talking about giving people diarrhea. He actually used the example of poisoning, and then
killing
apparently
people.
His staff laughed, and all the journalists in the room stared at him stone-faced because, sir, that's awkward.
So Ben Carson, you're a fucking asshole. All right.
And gnashing on, as we'll put it, the cake bakery examples that will not die. Last year, Bill Jack is one of the founders of the Worldview Academy, and he is reportedly the man who last year went to a bakery in Denver and asked for a cake to be decorated with anti-LGBT words and imagery. The bakery staff refused to decorate the cake in such a manner and suggested that they could instead sell him the supplies to add the decoration to the cake himself. Now, Jack went on to claim, and he was used as this great example of, look, LGBT people are saying they want to buy wedding cakes from people who don't want to make it for them for their same-sex marriages, and yet I can't go in and ask them to make a, no fags allowed cake, so this is hypocrisy at its highest. And they put out a statement from the organization saying, I believe I was discriminated against by the bakery based on my creed. Now, they're trying to be cutesy and smart and demonstrate that there's some kind of hypocrisy here. But of course, to anyone with half a brain, it's obvious that there is a huge difference between offering a service that you already offer to everyone.
Right.
Selling a wedding
with
cake.
just names.
Well, or just that it's a wedding cake. That it's like, I bought one of the ones out of the display, one of the options you sell, and you don't like who you're selling it to, and asking for something to be put on it. It's the same thing as if, like, I refuse to sell, a cake to someone from the KKK who wants to use it at their function and being asked to put I hate black people on the cake.
Or you wouldn't go down to Cantor's and order a cake and put something anti-Semitic on it, owned by Jewish owners. This is a bullshit.
But they're trying to be cute because they're trying to demonstrate as though there is some kind of hypocrisy happening, which is not. There is a huge difference between what is the substance of what you're asking for and who you're asking to give it to.
And hate speech, basically.
Yeah.
Right? On a cake.
So,
hate speech on a cake.
I swear, it's like the bakery story that will never die. That Sweet Cakes Bakery in Oregon. Y'all, at the end of the day, stop talking about cake.
I wonder, that woman
just makes me hungry.
And that woman's stupid because she's gotten so much press. All she has to do is put a GoFundMe up.
I'm pretty sure they did.
Oh,
at
they
some point.
did?
There was one of those,
I'd like
you
to
can
see...
give money to Sweet Cakes.
All right.
To get her out of her fines. And this next story is continuing a little bit of gnashing as well. We talked about that Larry Tomczyk guy, the guy that made the list of all of the terrible gay representation and the gay agenda in the media. And then last week we talked about Ellen's response to him on her show, which was so brilliant. And I think we even mentioned Anderson Cooper. Yes, Anderson Cooper did his own response to it. So she got responses from two of the smartest and wittiest LGBT entertainers in the media. Well, it wasn't enough for Larry. He made an 11-minute YouTube response video. I'll put it up on our Facebook page this afternoon so you can watch it. He opened his 11-minute response to Ellen, doing that sweet patronizing thank you and I hope you'll just hear me out kind of thing, and tells of his friend John who died of AIDS and was a former gay. He calls for respect and civility in the conversation on gay issues, and then he asks for some space to teach what he believes. He talks about Ellen's offense to his putting her marriage in quotes, and he said, I'm not trying to be offensive, yet I'm appealing that you recognize that a truth can offend the sensibility responsibility of those who are rejecting it. A nation rises or falls on marriage. If we dismantle this pillar of society as it has existed for over 5,000 years of Western civilization, and we redefine it to accommodate other arrangements such as yours or people advocating for polygamous or polyamorous or other configurations, what's going to be the consequences for this sacred institution and the future of our nation? He then went on to reference MLK and the movie Selma and some Bono song, and then gave 5 reasons that same-sex marriage is bad. 1, it violates the clear moral teachings of the scriptures and basis of our laws and our nature. Then he used biology and the nature and the procreation issue as number 2. Third, it's contrary to the teachings of every major world religion. Now, sidebar here, I love that these crazy, super conservative evangelicals that are warping even the fundamental nature of Christianity then go on to use every other religion that normally they talk about, all those people who are going to hell, to support opposition to same-sex marriage. It's as though like the enemy of my enemy is my friend suddenly for a minute.
Yeah, I'm going to justify this with...
And he said it is an injustice unequivocally harmful to children denied a father and a mother, and of course it redefines and devalues the institution of marriage between a man and a woman, because what somebody else does in their home and calls it a marriage somehow impacts yours. And it opens the floodgates for other arrangements and legitimizes a lifestyle replete with dangerous at-risk sexual behaviors such as HIV, AIDS, and 30 other STDs endangering our economy.
He has educated himself. 30.
First of all, I
30.
can only name like 6.
I don't know all of those.
I was like, once you get past like the clap, gonorrhea, syphilis,
The
and-
ones we've had.
right?
You know.
I mean, all the ones that they basically do at the clinic. Like, sir, I don't know what all these are. Like, what are these other 25 STDs that you can catch?
He's obviously he knows about them.
I know some people who have been around, and I cannot name more than 6. So, my favorite part was that he went on to say that it endangers the economy. I'm pretty sure that same-sex sex is not endangering our economy.
It's going to help the economy.
I'm just saying.
Well, my favorite was that a nation rises or falls on marriages.
Well,
I mean, there's so many holes we
is.
can poke in all of this.
It's those Roman orgies that led to the fall of the Roman Empire.
Yeah, but if that were the truth,
And the
then
Greeks.
how many 51% are getting divorced these days? Then we're falling. I mean, the straights are making us fall. If it's about the marriages,
That's true. It's gonna fall before we even get to count.
All right,
well,
well, let's
that's
lighten
gnashing their
this
teeth.
up a little bit. This has been intense. We get a little riled, guys. We get a little bit riled over
I know,
this.
it's funny. So with this,
How's-
not playing the surgery card, but it's hilarious because literally I can't do anything that involve my abdominal muscles. I find myself having to breathe a whole lot in order to be riled up. Like, it's a lot of work.
Well, I'm looking at you there, and I'm thinking, he's doing really great. I once did a radio show where they didn't have cameras, and the host had surgery that day. He started coughing up blood and fell. And they had to and we just kept the show going. There were several of us from the theater community. I'm not going to say who it was. And then they brought him back in to finish the show. Nobody knew.
Well, he's a trooper.
So you better stay seated because I'm fucked if you.
Well, and y'all can't see it at home. I'm wearing sweatpants because there's going to be scarring.
All right. Well, let's get to some fun stuff.
Yes, flashing through the gay nudes with the SAG Awards that happened Sunday night.
I loved the SAG Awards.
I was really happy with a lot of the results.
I was too. There were, that most of the ones that I voted for actually won, and there were some amazing speeches. My favorite was what's the actor? Can you say her name for me? From Orange Is the New Black.
Uza Adoba, that one.
Yes, I loved her speech so much, and it just gave so much inspiration because she basically said that she had quit acting the day before she got the job. She had auditioned, but she didn't think she was going to get it, so she was just going to give up. And that job gave her SAG card, and she went on to win the SAG Award. And I love her as Crazy Eyes in Orange Is the New Black.
I do too, but it's interesting because, SAG doesn't do supporting actor
Right, that's
categories. True. I mean, I think she's wonderful, but that show doesn't exist without Taylor Schilling's performance for me.
There were rumors that she was pissed over this. Is that true? Did you hear
I don't
that?
know her.
That she was upset and that's why she wasn't there, but maybe it was just
No, she's
stupid.
doing a play in New York.
Oh, so somebody
She couldn't be at. She had a film at Sundance the night before either, and she wasn't there. She's doing a show in New York.
Okay,
now.
This was something on Twitter, and you have to tell me. I loved your tweet.
I just tweeted, at someone. I said it's when all of the out of work actors tweeting snarky things about the actors being recognized for the SAG work that they are doing on television shows the difference between why some people are there and some people are sitting at home. Clearly I love snark, but there's a difference between snarking about people's silly wardrobe or people that take themselves too seriously, but just people just railing on somebody isn't deserving. When you get to that level of performance, you're talking about a wealth of riches. There wasn't anyone in any of these
Not one.
categories that it was like, oh, you don't deserve to be there. When you talk about who should win over others, for me it becomes apples and oranges. It's like, what show do I like better? What character do I like work better? But all of these people are hardworking actors who struggled like all of us have to get there. So if you're trying to take that away from them because you're frustrated with your own success and abilities, that's about you, not them.
Well, I often have observed over the years that when I see someone that is bitter and mean and does not celebrate the success of other people, it indicates why they are not successful themselves. And I notice that people that do celebrate the success of others, if they have the talent, they do rise.
Yeah.
And we know a lot of those people. But when you don't, it's not good. It's not good. This is like a different kind of show.
Well, it's like we
show.
all should want to grow up and be Viola Davis. You know, you
That's-
get up there and speak eloquently on a role that she is just tearing the paint off the walls with the performance she is
And
giving
that
in
speech.
it, and responding to that New York Times article that said she wasn't attractive enough to be a leading woman, and just sort of
And
classily addressing it.
And said, thank you to those who said that I was, and thank you. It was such a great speech. Well, let's go real quick. J.K. Simmons, no surprise, from Whiplash. He won Best Supporting Actor. Patricia Arquette, Boyhood. I loved her performance. The cast of Birdman won Outstanding Performance.
But I just want to say, like, because you can read the whole list online, but the Birdman cast, I'm so glad they won that, and I think
too.
it's the most appropriate award for them, because the unique nature of the way they shot that required all of the actors to be fully present in the scene the whole time. When there's no ability of an editor to create your performance in the editing process, you can really tell that it required everyone firing on all cylinders at 100% the entire time on that project to create the feeling of the entire movie. So I felt like it was so perfectly acknowledged for actors to acknowledge what that required of all of them to achieve that. And of course, then Orange is the New Black women, all of those women, and the incredible work that all of them do to make that show what it is.
They won for ensemble
which
as
is
well.
so deserving as well.
That was such a highlight. And then the other highlight, of course, was I love that Mark Ruffalo won for The Normal Heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the moment that you love so much between Carrie Fisher and her dear Debbie Reynolds.
Someone was posting on Facebook, Debbie Reynolds is batshit crazy. Yeah, in a real good way. She was entertaining as fucking. I mean, she's 180, so I mean, whatever she said was fine. But Carrie Fisher, when she said that her mother had raised $30 million for an organization for mental health, and she said, and 4.5 of that went to me personally, I died. Carrie Fisher is one of the sharpest minds, amazing writer, and acknowledges that she is crazy, but it's all good.
There it is.
All right.
Well, flashing on, we have some super exciting, I love both of these stories, some gay fashion news. Tell us about it.
Well, this is John. Put that picture up. It's Rick Owens has his spring line, and he sent it down the runway with penis cutouts. Now, I found out about this on Emerson Collins' Facebook page.
Well, of course, I posted it because that's where I'm going to get my entire spring wardrobe from.
Well, it was, if there's anything about dicks, it's on Emerson's page. That's really not true. But it was, he said, I pass classical marble statues of nude and draped figures in the park every day, and they are a vision of sensuality, yes, but also of grace and freedom. As a participant in one of our most progressive aesthetic arenas, am I not allowed to use this imagery? And yes, he walked them down. I wonder if they had to show their dick, though, before they got the job. I don't think a couple of them did. No. Did you see? Yeah, no. They're okay.
Well, I just thought it was a huge missed opportunity. I mean, he did all these flowy robes with these cute little cutouts, but if you're going to, flash a bunch of peen on stage, why not also introduce a cock ring accessory line?
Oh, well, that's probably next.
I would have think, for one, it makes everyone look a little better going down the runway, and
better,
you get
bigger.
A whole other set of, a jewelry line that you can introduce and sell. I mean, what was it? What's his face? Tom Ford's penis pendants that sold out so crazy. He could have made cock rings the hot new spring accessory.
Well, and we do have an. Go with the accessory. Yes.
And of course, and a very important Belgian designer did his menswear show not to be outdone by the peen on display. It was called Explicit Beauty, and his male models marched down the runway with day glow butt plugs attached to their lapels. Now, this was a nod to a story we did back in December, that Paul McCarthy, the giant inflatable tree in Paris that got all that controversy because it looked like a giant green butt plug. Well, he found that to be censorship, so he added it to his runway show, which I just find amazing. In case the anti-censorship message wasn't clear, his first model going down the runway wore a clear vinyl vest with the words, "Stop terrorizing our world."
And we got that picture, too,
in defense of the giant butt plug in Paris. So
Can we say his name? I can't say it. Well, I'll say the first two words. You say the last one.
I skipped it. If you want to say it, say it.
Birrongdonk. That's his. That I don't know how to say it. We should have done research.
All right,
And
flashing on.
Oh, I love this story because there's so many of our heroes who were convicted of gay sex crimes in the UK, and actor Stephen Fry has begun a campaign to overturn the historic gay sex convictions. He's fronting the campaign with Harvey Weinstein to overturn historical gay sex convictions in the UK. The pair will seek official pardons for the estimated 50,000 men who are believed to have been persecuted, imprisoned, or chemically castrated under Section 11 of the Criminal Law Amendment Act of 1885, which was eventually overturned in 1967. Alan Turing, which was pardoned in 2009, which we saw the brilliant movie of.
And clearly that's part of why, Harvey Weinstein's involved, and I love that they're using part of the story of that movie. And interestingly, one of the parts that a lot of people are frustrated by in the film is how little attention they felt like was paid to the very last part of his life, but here they are using the attention the movie is receiving to actually raise issue. I mean, 50,000, that's a crazy number when you consider what all is involved in chemical castration and like what that process was. That is a huge number of people,
and that movie's
to be
doing
prosecuted.
so well.
So, I mean, of course it doesn't do anything for the experience of those men, but to have all of that overturned and acknowledge that that was such a terrible period of history and what was done to those men is sort of an amazing thing. And of course, if you don't know who Stephen Fry is, I discovered him in a movie called Wild that was one of Jude Law's early works where he played young Bosie in the story of Oscar Wilde. It's an exquisite and stunning film, and he's a huge mouthpiece in the UK. He also recently married a 30-year-old stand-up comedian, so he's been in the news a lot lately. He's hilarious on Twitter and been very open about his mental disease issues, so he's a really, really great advocate from our community.
And Wilde was also one of these who was convicted and will be pardoned.
Yeah, sure.
True?
I don't know. I don't know if he's on the list.
Well, he was one. I'm pretty sure he would be, since it was. I mean, that's what I would think. That's why Stephen Fry is so involved.
Yes, I just don't state facts. I just don't state facts that I don't know.
Well.
So maybe you should write him tweet him and say, make sure Oscar Wilde. I don't know if Oscar Wilde's already been pardoned. Is why I said that.
Oh, I see.
Because he's so famous that may have already been done. Anyway, flash on.
I was about to think you were just being a little bitch, but you actually got a good point.
Well, it's like that thing of like you can say if I haven't researched it, I don't say it. You can call me out on stuff I actually know, but since I don't know, but I feel like he's super famous, so it may have already been done.
Could have been. Okay. All right.
I'm not agreeing with you just because it sounds right.
Can you tell Emerson's on a little bit of drugs? Just a little bit.
They flashing on. This is really big. We've talked a lot about the involvement of the Mormon Church in anti-LGBT issues, going back to the amount of money that they poured into anti-Prop 8 in California. And this week, it was interesting. The leaders of the church gave a press conference that sounded like what they were saying is they were willing to support equal rights ordinances for LGBT people in housing and employment. But the vast majority of the press conference was basically saying that they would do that in exchange for religious freedom exemptions. So they would say basically amounts to them saying, we will allow those kinds of laws in Utah because we can see where the wind is blowing and we're going to lose on this marriage equality issues. So we will say that equal rights in housing and businesses and all of that's fine so long as if it goes against our religion, those laws don't apply to us. So it looks like they're on our side, and Equality Utah and a number of organizations were pleased, basically because it seemed like they were making any movement. But HRC quickly pointed out that what they're really saying is, we're not changing any doctrine or anything about what we believe. We're just not going to fight these equality issues. We're just going to try to carve out protections for our religious exemption so that we can still continue to do whatever we want in businesses and buildings and companies and corporations that we own.
Yeah.
So it's not as good as it sort of looked.
I think I'm on the HRC bandwagon on this one.
Well, it's like until you make actual movement, like no, that the equal rights is what it should be. Everyone should have equal protection. So, and no, your businesses that you own don't get to go against it just because you don't think that you should have to treat everyone the same. It's sort of ludicrous.
And in Catholic news, the Pope met with a trans man, first time ever, Diego Neria Lejarga and his fiancée. Notice I don't really know how to say his name, but I just said it very, very like I knew. Okay, but he and his fiancée Saturday met with the Pope in the Vatican. Last year, Neria sent Francis a letter in which he described how the church he attended in Plasencia, Spain, had rejected him after he underwent sex reassignment surgery. One priest even called him the devil's daughter. The Pope called Neria on Christmas Eve and invited him to the Holy see the next month. So hopefully the Catholic Church ceases to be a machine of hate and suffering for the good of believers and non-believers, he said in a statement. So some progress there.
Well, I mean, it's like obviously we know the Catholic Church isn't moving forward quickly, and even the people who thought, yeah, Pope Francis might be a little more liberal, I mean, it's not turning out to be so true, but like that is a big thing. For the first time ever, a trans person, an openly known trans person, met with the Pope about trans issues. So we'll call that something, right?
Yes, and checking
And
in
moving
with
on to
crazy.
check in with crazy. All right, a regular, one of an old standby favorites, Sarah Palin has returned to this segment. Bless her stupid heart. After a teleprompter malfunction in Iowa, because she gives all of her speeches, and I love how many conservatives talk about Obama being a teleprompter president, like he can't say anything without the teleprompter telling him what to say. I've never seen him have a problem if it had a problem.
Yeah, I think that if Obama's teleprompter went out, he would
could
be
keep
able
going.
to. Yeah, he could.
Well, she could not, and she had to ad-lib, and in the middle of talking about something completely different, she flustered for a couple of syllables and then proceeded to say, "The man can only ride you when your back is bent." There was a giant pause where she sort of realized how porny that sounded, but she was like, screw it, I'm in it and committed to it. So strengthen it. Then the man can't ride you. America won't get taken for a ride because so much is at stake. I was
It was
girl, that was so bad. Like, it was like, how you've been doing this for so long. Can't you just say one of the 800 metaphors you've used before?
And it's not true, because a man can ride you if your back is not bent. It's not true.
I mean, it's not even. Yes, it's not even
right?
physically
right?
accurate.
Am I right about that?
Oh, right. John is being all virginal suddenly in the room.
And then let's move on to Kentucky, because I love this story. A drunk Kentucky senator says law from 1891 allows him to drive drunk in office. There are a lot of people going to support this.
Y'all, it's the best DUI excuse in the history of DUI excuses.
So he says that according to Section 43 of the state constitution, the members of the General Assembly shall, in all cases except treason, felony, breach, or security of the peace, be privileged from arrest during their attendance on the sessions of their respected houses and in going to and returning from the same, and for any speech or debate in either house they shall not be questioned in any other place. So he just said, I was drunk, I was coming back and forth, whatever.
Yeah, so basically it was the first day of the legislature, so he was on his way to work, so it doesn't matter that he was going 65 and a 45 and blew a .088 on a preliminary breath test.
And doesn't it just make us happy that either coming or going from work he was drunk?
It's
you
literally,
have to get
yes.
drunk to come. Did he get drunk at work?
Hey, I get it. Going to work at the Kentucky Senate might make you need to drink. I mean, I'm not hating on him for that, but like, honey, call it Uber. He told the press that the provision was added to the state law in 1891 to keep legislators from being bothered by people who would arrest them during sessions.
Oh boy!
Bless his stupid heart.
All right, and we got the Super Bowl, Cody. I only know this.
So exciting! What's gay in sports
Yes.
ball? Yeah, the Katy Perry concert. It's not the Super Bowl. It's the Katy Perry concert starring Idina Menzel. Happens on Sunday afternoon. And so we have two sports ball
So I need
stories.
to DVR it just for that, right?
Yeah, just watch the opening when Idina Menzel sings the national anthem and John Legend sings
Well,
America
I'm on a
Beautiful, I
cruise, so I'm
believe.
not going to be able to watch it.
Well, that's the only part you need to see. And then the Katy Perry concert for 12 minutes in the middle.
Okay.
Well, so we have two stories. A great survey is done every year about religion and sports ball survey. The third annual survey of sports ball and religion, conducted among a random sample of Americans by the nonpartisan Public Religion Research Institute in partnership with Religions News Services. They found these statistics, and this first one I find terrifying. 26% of Americans say that God plays a role in determining which team wins a sporting event. 1 in 4 people think God decides who wins a sports ball game.
He's a sports fan. He's not like us.
But I feel like that can't really be true because some Seattle sports ball team is going to the Super Bowl, and I feel like in the South there's way more people praying than there are in Seattle.
Yeah, and then it goes to like who's praying harder and who's more
And
deserving.
for how many hours? Like, is it like your prayer chain has to be more active? Like, when do you start? Is it like who starts praying for the game? Like, if we start praying now for next year's Super Bowl and pray uninterrupted the entire time, can we decide who gets there?
And does God penalize if one of the players is beating his wife? I mean,
like, does that go a little in their favor? Well, 53% believe God rewards athletes who have faith with good health and success on the playing field. Now, in more rational news, 73% of respondents support a team signing a gay or lesbian athlete. Now, I should think it would be way higher for lesbians, let's be honest. 56% of Americans say that gay and lesbian athletes face a lot of discrimination in professional sports, and 32% said at least a little. So at least a majority believe that, only like 9% said none. But white evangelical Protestants are less likely than members of other religious groups to believe that gay and lesbian athletes face a lot of discrimination, with 44% saying they face a little and 11% saying they face none at all.
Wow.
Be like, I don't think you can be bigoted against LGBT people and then say that you don't think they face any discrimination. You're the ones doing it.
That's exactly right.
Bless their stupid hearts. And finally, because we talked about it a little last week, that story about the balls being deflated, where you looked at me like I was a crazy person, like, why are we talking about this story?
But it blew up.
Well, it's all anyone's been talking about is Deflategate. And Tom Brady, bless his beautiful heart, and he's married to that supermodel.
Hot. He's so hot.
Well, somebody split together the highlight reel of him talking about Deflategate in his press conferences, and I'll take us out as the final story, just reading the exact words that Tom Brady delivered about the kind of balls that he likes to play in sports ball.
Butch it up.
I pick the balls. Our equipment guys do a great job of breaking the balls. To me, they're perfect. I don't want anyone touching the balls after that. I don't want anyone rubbing them. To me, those balls are perfect. I choose the balls. I wouldn't want anyone touching those. Whatever feels good that day, I'm not squeezing the balls. That's not part of my process. I grab it. Breaking the balls. Some guys like old balls. I mean, they're all different. They also know how I like the balls, and I tell them how great they are. This is a very serious topic.
He left out that some guys like young balls.
Well, he did. No, actually, he said some guys like new balls. But it didn't use the word balls, so they didn't include that in the super clips.
Emerson Collins, we flew through this show. We
What's
got
Gay in
through
Sports Ball? We even finished on time.
We did finish on time. I want to say thank you so much for coming in right out of the operating room.
That's right.
Just walking out of the operating room and coming here.
It's really just because I'm a narcissist and I just want the attention.
I really do appreciate it. I knew I was going to be screwed. Hey, tomorrow night, everybody, I am hosting my friend and Emerson's friend who sang the theme song and Pass Me Not, O Gentle Savior in Southern Baptist Sissies, Mr. Levi Christ. Tony Winter has an online concert. We're going to put the information in the chat room. It's going to be on my Facebook wall at 4 o'clock and on our Facebook wall here, the Dell and Emerson Show. But we're going to go out with amazing rendition of Stained Glass Window, which I love this song, and I will be hosting, and I love this because he can be on the East Coast, I can be on the West Coast, y'all can be in your living rooms, and we can be in your living rooms with you, and it's not even creepy. So enjoy the concert. Join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. West Coast, 7 p.m. East Coast. Central Time would be 5 p.m. So join us in that, and we're going to go out. And next week I won't be here, but Emerson will have an amazing show with some cohorts. So you can follow Dell's adventures on his cruise on his Facebook page, and then I will be in Norfolk, Virginia. Check that out again at reelitout.org. And yes, I will update the Dell and Emerson Show Facebook page once we figure out the fun plan for next week's show. As always, thank y'all for listening.
Tune in on iTunes and download old shows, and don't forget to share our show with your friends.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great week.
Bye-bye.
This is Levi Christ.
There's a rage way down inside me, a fire that's branded my soul, and it leaves me as one of the many, with a hate so hard to control. But I've seen that hate is not the answer. There's a time when we all must decide to step on up with wisdom and power and say, children, let's give up the fight. Oh, consider this for a moment or two. consumed of many colors in a stained glass window, and love is the light shining through. Now you can't find 1,000 explanations to demote my position with a card. Oh, but I've discovered a divine resolution. Oh, Lord, I'm embraced by the light